Hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It's great to see such a full house here ready to celebrate all things Brooklyn Bridge. I'm Adelia Gregory, educator in charge public programs and engagement in the Department of Education, and it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the Met, to the Uris Center of Education, and to tonight's talk, The Brooklyn Bridge, Photographed, with Jeff L. Rosenheim, Joyce Frank Menschel, curator in charge, Department of Photographs. Before we start, and I promise we'll start soon, I'd like to share just a few words of gratitude and a little bit of context for tonight's talk. First, thank you all for making it out tonight to be together. It's thrilling to see a full house to celebrate the remarkable installation, The Brooklyn Bridge, up close. Beautifully organized by our colleagues in the Scientific Research Department and has been an absolutely exceptional educational resource for our team. Thank you. The installation offers a true interdisciplinary approach to learning that really integrates science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics, more, along with the visual arts. And here in the education department, we love to experiment with ideas that foster critical thinking, problem solving, and new connections for people of all ages. And we love it when there's some beauty thrown in there too. So thank you for that as well. And this installation aligns just beautifully with our approach to accessible and creative approach to learning. And of course, it aligns with our own New York City pride and love of the Brooklyn Bridge. As I hope you have all seen as you are arriving or other visits to the Met, the Brooklyn Bridge up close features 7 of the finest original 19th century drawings from the original proposal of the Brooklyn Bridge long before it became an iconic symbol of our city. The installation was drawn from a larger collection of over 10,000 drawings, all made in 1867. They're part of the city's collection and stored and cared for in the municipal archives. Through this research and project, these drawings were brought back into the public eye for the first time in over 40 years. Met scientists were able to examine them through the Scientific Research Partnerships Program, a grant-funded initiative designed to support art institutions across the country, like the municipal archives. The exhibition is also notes kind of a celebration of the Met's ongoing commitment to sharing its resources with New York City institutions and serving as a source of public knowledge and learning for all. I hope you've all been able to spend time with these works while they've been on view. If not, you have a few more days to spend with them, and please bring your friends. They will remain on view until February 22nd. The Scientific Research Partnerships Program is supported by the Mellon Foundation and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, and this special installation is made possible by the Mellon Foundation. I'd like to share just one more additional note of gratitude on behalf of Heidi Holder, the Frederick P. and Sandra P. Rose Chair of Education, who very, very much wanted to be here tonight and regrets that she wasn't able to be here in person. But she offers her deep gratitude to our friends in scientific research, the municipal archives, and of course the Department of Photographs for collaborating on tonight's gathering. And she offers an extra special shout out to Francesca D'Alessio for championing this work and for her infectious enthusiasm for all things related to this project, and of course our beloved Brooklyn Bridge. Her energy and integrity has been inspiring for many and always fun to be part of. Thank you, Fran. And now we are ready to begin. We're ready? Great. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Jeff Rosenheim, Joyce Frank Menschel, curator in charge, Department of Photographs.
Good evening, everyone, and I want to thank Fran, in my own way, for inviting me yet to another program. Fran is a force to be reckoned with, and thank you as well, all of you, for coming tonight. I want to thank my colleagues, Marco and Elena, for your kind invitation as well to speak tonight. It's an honor to be with them and you all. It's a great pleasure for me to be part of this celebration as a kind of symbolic closing event for the Brooklyn Bridge up close. It's our excellent work in partnership with the Municipal Archives. If anyone is here from the Municipal Archives, raise your hand so I can thank you. Front row, back row, very good. It's a good dynamic. It's a bridge across the audience. We really thank you for taking care of these treasures and allowing us to help in our own way with what you do. They are certainly the most impressive drawings, architectural drawings that I've ever seen, that maybe have ever been made in New York City. And they are John Roebling's original presentation drawings, obviously of the Brooklyn Bridge. And what's interesting to me is that we get to see them a little bit into the context of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's a classical or neoclassical building. Obviously, the Brooklyn Bridge is a Gothic masterpiece. And I just want to just do a little riff and then tell you what we're going to do tonight together. And I hope that you will follow me on this journey across the bridge to and fro. And so let's just think about this bridge. So this is one of the drawings outside. Who has not seen it? Don't be embarrassed. Everyone's seen it. Fantastic. It's right there. It's a stunning object that you've got to get close to. So, as I said, what we're going to do is we're going to ramble across this bridge. We're going to travel across it. You can see it was called the East River Bridge, which it was known until 1915 when it became the Brooklyn Bridge. What we'll experience, as it is my pleasure to share with you, is how it was viewed today and how it was viewed in the past. We'll see it in photographs primarily, but also in paintings and drawings, and we'll even see it in film. That's a little short treat for you. We'll hear from some great poets and some pedestrians. I'm the pedestrian. And my goal is to share with you what I truly believe is America's greatest cathedral. Think about that. It's a Gothic masterpiece. It soars into the sky. It's grounded in the river. It connects Brooklyn and Manhattan with steel cables, with stone, and with gesture. And it's an everyday ballet that many of us in New York take every day to go to work and to travel home. It's art itself. Here's another opportunity to say, go and look at this drawing. It's right outside in the corridor you passed. I wish I could draw that well. Mechanical drawing was something I prided myself in high school. I didn't really have the skills to make a drawing like this or the ambition to imagine bridging anything with my drawing. But what I will tell you is that you probably will not see this drawing on public view for another decade, another 20 years, another 40 years. Go look at it again. It will reward your eye the closest you get to it. Okay, a few statistics before we go. We're going to look at a film that was made in 1899 in a second. A few statistics. Number one, New York and Brooklyn were the first and third largest cities in the country in 1860. That was, 140 years ago. The bridge spans 1,559 feet between the massive towers. It was so much larger than Roebling's other bridges, which themselves were the first. The Niagara Falls Bridge, which had a span of 825 feet. The Covington-Cincinnati Bridge, which has had a span of 1,224 feet. And, of course, the Brooklyn Bridge. The Cincinnati Bridge was the prototype. Both were designed by, all were designed by Roebling. He, of course, I know you know, died very early in this process in a freak accident. His son took over, and he got the bends going into the caisson. So there's a lot of drama on the construction of the bridge. But let's take a look at what it was like in one of the first silent films made of the crossing of the bridge. I'm going to let it run silent for your pleasure. Maybe not so silent. Who travels across the bridge to work? One. Has anyone ridden across the bridge? Has anyone recently stopped and made photographs from the bridge? One of the great things is the piers were really the largest buildings in the Western Hemisphere at the time that they were built. So it offers both something to look at and something to look from. It's that kind of mystical power that it has still to this day. This simple ride across the bridge, which was filmed in 1899, would have given pleasure in a way to so many people when it was seen. One of the great opportunities we all have today is this thing called YouTube. Okay, obviously. But what it means is that curators and historians and preservationists can look at things in a very dynamic way that we never had access to before. So the bridge in total is 6,000 feet across, and the 270 feet tall towers were, as I said, a beacon for artists since it was completed in 1883. It was the longest suspension bridge. Enough of the statistics. Let's look at how artists responded. I show you a picture from around 1910 by an artist who was born in the States but is essentially English, named Alvin Langdon Coburn. And Coburn was sort of a photo-secessionist. He saw the bridge as this place that shimmered over the water. And he really did make that sort of gestural kind of picture. This is a gravure print. Coburn loved rivers. He photographed beautifully in London and, of course, in New York City, and published early books which featured pictures like this. Or Carl Struess. Does anyone know Carl Struess? A much less well-known artist who photographed and then moved to Hollywood. He designed lenses and became part of a Hollywood scene. This is also a kind of impressionistic study of the bridge. This is in the Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City. I love this picture because it really is from the ferry landing, from the ferry slip, that it replaced in a certain sense. Those of you know Joseph Stella, who was actually born outside the country. And Stella was totally taken by the bridge, and for another reason. He really did feel like the bridge was a modernist masterpiece, and he made this kind of cubist, fantastic study in the Wilczek collection. Thank you to the Wilczeks. They're great supporters of the Met and really enlightened collectors. And this is the great painting. Has anyone been to Yale to see this painting? It's stunning, it shimmers, it has this awesome power. It's as good as any modernist painting made, in my opinion, in the US. I think it's worth the pilgrimage to New Haven to see. I got to see it when I was a student there, and it just reminded me how great another perspective on something can be. And this is just, the palette is amazing, the drawing is amazing, and the fragmentation of this structure is stunning. But back to Walker Evans. And by the way, any pictures that don't have any credit are from the Met's own collection. So all the Walker Evans you're going to see, and many, many others are in our collection. So what's the story about Walker Evans and the bridge? Walker Evans was born in St. Louis. He was educated at Williams for a year or two. He went to work at the public library. He wanted to be a writer. He picked up the camera in the late 1920s, moved to Paris, and came back and decided he wanted to make his way as a writer and a little bit as a photographer. And one of his first great bodies of work, he was living in Brooklyn at the time, was to photograph the bridge. He had a job on Wall Street. He traveled across the bridge, and he met a man named Hart Crane. I'm sure we all know the great poet Hart Crane. And the two of them didn't exactly collaborate, but they lived very close to each other within eyeshot of the bridge, and something inspired Evans in the different way than it inspired Crane to start making pictures. And when the bridge comes out, and here's my show and tell for the night. Does anyone have a copy of the first American edition of the bridge? If not, come see me after the presentation. You can see it. It's a fantastic long poem published in 1930. But Evans was influenced at the time, not by the American idiom, but by a European idiom, by the idea of the Bauhaus. And his pictures are fragmented, not like Stella's, but in a different way. And Stella, of course, was the first choice that Crane wanted, or the publisher wanted, for the illustration for his poem. That didn't happen. So let's just take a look at one other artist. This is a little-known painting in Brooklyn. Has anyone seen this painting? All right, this is an enlightened crowd. Very good. It's a terrific picture. It's late. It was made literally the last year that she was living in New York full-time. She makes this picture, and then she moves to Santa Fe. And her art, I think you can see what you know in the past. She'd been working, obviously, for 30 years already. first showed at Stieglitz's gallery in New York. But I think it's great, but it's not her best painting, in my opinion, but it tells you how powerful this symbolic form was. So, all right, so we're just going to look at some early pictures. So the next part of this is not so much how artists responded, but how photographers were responding to the physicality of the bridge. And I think it will reward our attention. I think it will tell us something for what comes a bit later. Okay, so the two piers were enormous. As I said, that when they were built to its height, which is over 260 feet, they were as tall as everything but the Trinity Church in New York, the steeple of Trinity Church. But that meant that they had to dig deep into the ground, into the river, and it was an engineering feat to be able to do this. It was deeper on the Brooklyn side, I believe, than on the Manhattan side. And that was its own engineering problem to solve. But look at all the figures up there. This is a picture in the Museum of the City of New York's collection. And you can see that it's built of stone. I think it was quarried in, where was it quarried, Marco? Where was it quarried, my friends? Somebody knows this. I think it was quarried in Maine. Where some of the stone that this building was quarried from. Here's a picture, not very sharp, that's in the Museum of the City of New York's collection. A little later, what we have, the difference between here, which is 1870, and here in 75 is that at least one of the piers is complete. And I think we can see across the way. And it's like a fallen ruin, a Gothic ruin sitting there on the other side. So this idea of this perspective, that these two perspectives are going to be joined in the bridge is very much about the thinking of how you put a photograph together. How do you connect two things so far apart? And I think the photographer did a good job with that hanging boom with the hook. This picture in the public library, it is enormous print. Anybody from the public library here? This is a masterpiece. I've actually seen it. It's actually, I think, stored in the map room because it's too large for the Department of Photographs to store it in. But I think you can really see how Gothic, how powerful that pier is. We're looking at Manhattan. Look how much taller it is than pretty much everything else. This is the tallest building, if you will, that was built in the Western Hemisphere. I just find it just stunning. You can see that the river was an extremely active part of New York City, as it sort of still is today. This is the first picture I could find. These are from glass negatives in the Brooklyn Museum, which I think they're stored either at the Brooklyn Museum or at the public library. This is the first time they were able to stretch one of those 16-inch wide cables across. This is Roebling's great masterpiece. He was the inventor of this technique to twist wire to create suspension bridges, and they got it across. You could not cross it at this time, so it's somewhere around 1876, and you can see that it literally crosses it and then is grounded into the ground away from where the picture lies. This sort of simple, iconic way of looking at the bridge would change very soon. This is a picture that was made from the Brooklyn Pier, looking down into Brooklyn. Okay, so the story about photography different from painting. Painters can paint anything. They can paint ideal circumstances. They can paint from aerial perspectives. They can imagine what the world looks like from afar and paint it and make you believe it. Photographers have to actually get there. So where was this picture made? This picture was made with a glass plate negative on the top of the Brooklyn Pier. This is the first time that anyone, other than if they got up in a hot air balloon, which did exist in the 1850s, but we know that this is a picture. But it allows us to see the shape of New York City, or in this case Brooklyn, in around 1876 when this picture was made. So just imagine that. But this is a picture, and I'm going to have to say I can't read it from here, but this is a warning not to walk on that little walkway. Let me just remind myself exactly what it says. It says, safe for only 25 men at once, at one time. Do not walk close together. Do not run, jump, or trot, or break step. Actually, that means break step. I guess you're supposed to break step. So the Washington Roebling, engineer-in-chief. What do we know about Washington Roebling by this time? He's sick. Who's doing the bridge? Wonderful. And she did a great job. So the Brooklyn Bridge is empowered by her fortitude, her skills, and her management. She's a star. So anyway, here they are. I would not walk up there. I'm not really afraid of heights, but this would scare me. By the way, unknown internet source. This is one of the great pleasures and tragedies of photography for curators, is that half the stuff you want to show, you have, when it was made or how it was made. And, I corrected a lot of dates. You'll see that. Okay, this is a fantastic, when I worked at the Museum of the City of New York, I loved looking at this picture. I just can't even believe it. And this is in mid-construction, so the bridge is completed in 1883. It's 1881, and they're far away from being done. It just knocks me out. It's not in great condition, but it's a stunning, stunning picture. This is a picture I bought for the Met about 5 years ago. It's the earliest picture of the completed bridge that I was ever able to find. It was on view once. I can't wait to put it on view. I should have put it on view at this time, but I wasn't that smart. It's a big, huge contact print. It's an albumin silver print. It's probably 14 or 16 inches wide. The sailboats are passing under the bridge, but you can see that arc, that gesture. That's a thing that just knocks me out every time. And, it was conceived from the beginning to have this arc. I'm not an engineer. I'm sure there's some engineers in the room, but how did you know it would work? I don't know. Okay, some pictures of people enjoying themselves on the bridge. This is after the bridge opened. It's a snapshot from 1891, slightly before the construction, before the film that we saw. This is my favorite picture from a diagonal perspective from the Library of Congress's collection. So this is already into the 20th century. Again, you feel that curve. Look at that. Look, it's not just what happens between the piers that makes this bridge so great. It's what happens as it enters the two cities. The lead up, that's why that drawing is so amazing. How long, Marco, how long is the stone arched passageway to the two sides? It's 6,000 feet from end to end, and it's only 1,500 feet between the piers. So there's twice as much space on the other side. It's just unbelievable. I love this. I love seeing those buildings on the right underneath. And we'll talk about how an artist like Walker Evans found himself drawn as much to the bridge later in his life as he was to the buildings under it. This is one of my favorite pictures. Anyone seen this picture? Everyone's seen this picture. So what are they doing? They're painting. I assume they have to paint even today. Yes, someone's nodding yes, they have to paint today. So when the bridge was completed, what's one of the lovely things about doing this kind of research is you can find this picture, which I adore. I wish we had this in our collection. It's in the archives collection. And then I realized that when the bridge was completed in 1883, sure enough, this is the kind of picture that the Frank Leslie's Illustrated used. And what were they doing? They were tying those pieces together. They weren't painting them, they were tying them together. And look at the distance to the water surface. This is actually probably pretty accurate. And it might have been made from a sketch artist, or it might have been even made from a photographer. I don't think so. But it's probably just made from the eye of the artist, the invention of the artist. Kind of cool. Okay, does anyone know the great unsung Paul Groats? Not a one except for my friend Peter. So you might think in 1929, Walker Evans was the first to photograph the bridge in the way he did. And the answer was no. He had a roommate. It wasn't Hart Crane. It was this German guy named Paul Groats, who was trained as an architect. He came to America. He had a 35 millimeter camera. It was a Leica. Does anyone have a Leica? Peter does. Introduced sort of small camera, hand camera technology before Henri Cartier-Bresson did it. And he started making pictures walking across the bridge with his friend, Walker Evans. About 15 years ago, I found a set of Paul Grote's pictures that no one had ever seen, including, it's going to make me cry, including this one and this one. And this is the difference between Paul Grote's and Walker Evans. Paul Grote's was a romantic, and he loved the bridge for his own reasons. And that's why it's such a powerful symbol for artists. You get what you put into it. This guy was interested in the drama, the sort of moody drama of being in a place. You can't even see where the water is. You can't see the city. You're in a place. It has sounds and smells, and you're listening to the seagulls. You're hearing the horns from the harbor, and you're experiencing it like a poet. And that's not how Walker Evans saw it. And so we're going to jump into the next story. Yes, question.
Where is that last photo? Where is that?
It's here in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. All the ones that don't have credits are here. Come visit us. Seriously. You're here tonight. I'm going home after this. Anyway, I love this picture. Paul Grote's, as I say, is sort of an unsung hero. So in April of 1924, here we go. In April of 1924, Crane moved to 110 Columbia Heights in Brooklyn. Does that address ring a bell? Yes. It is. Who lived there before Hart Crane? Washington Roebling. It's fate. Crane did not choose 110 Columbia Heights as the place for his residence. He had a boyfriend whose father lived at 110 Columbia Heights, and Crane had no money, though he came from great wealth. He was despised by his family and he let them down by wanting to be a poet and writing the great poem about America, which is called The Bridge. It's this book. He moved to 110 Columbia Heights. It was inevitable that his story about America's birth and its possibilities, its ambition and its failures would be about this bridge because he could see it from one of the rooms or from the roof at 110 Columbia Heights. Evans lived a few blocks away. It was where, as I said, Emily and Washington Roebling lived. And for the most of the time that Washington was supervising the construction of the bridge, it really was Emily doing it from this place. So here's a picture by Evans of Crane in 1929. That's our poet. And there's Evans by his roommate, Paul Grote, from around the same time in Darien, Connecticut. What did Evans do with this bridge? The same kind of thing that Crane did, but from a slightly different perspective. Here's what Crane said about what he saw from his window. He wrote to his friend, "I'm living in the shadow of that bridge. There is all the glorious dance of the river directly beyond the back window, the ships, the harbor, the skyline of Manhattan. It is everything from mountains to the walls of Jerusalem and Nineveh." He wrote to his mother, "Just imagine looking out your window directly on the East River with nothing intervening between your view of the Statue of Liberty way down the harbor and the glorious beauty of the Brooklyn Bridge close above you on the right. All of the great new skyscrapers of lower Manhattan are marshaled directly across from you, and there is a constant stream of tugs and liners and sailboats in procession before you on the river. It's really a magnificent place to live." So for me, Evans doesn't do that. He is content with this engineering marvel. He's content with Roebling's moxie that he can cross this river with the piers so far apart. And he makes pictures like this from below. It's a super picture. Sorry, I got to go back. That's the camera that these pictures were made. It's a negative, this big. It's 1 5/8 by 2.5 inches. It's an unperforated roll film camera. And all the pictures you're seeing, all the pictures I'm going to show you were made with that camera. It's a snapshot camera, very hard to use, but it's a great instrument for responding to things like this. So Evans was going to abandon this very style very soon and make very different kinds of pictures. You know those pictures from his collaboration with James Agee during the Depression, Let Us Now Praise Famous Men. You know those pictures from all the New Deal photographs. But these pictures are about something marvelous, something extraordinarily new, something as radical as a bridge across the East River. He was also interested in these kinds of characters about being on the bridge, sleeping even on the bridge, such as this one. It's not very Evansian. Are there any Evans scholars here? This doesn't look like very many Walker Evans pictures. He's going to give it up, but it's so important to the story of this project. He also looks down. I don't know if you can see it. I don't have a pointer, but if my slide was a little sharper, you could see that someone has walked across all that grain or whatever it is in those open containers, walked from container to container. So Evans is a modernist. If you think of Man Ray or Moholy-Nagy or the Bauhaus, this is what you should be thinking about. This is radical European expressionist photography. This is a little bit more straightforward, but this idea of the city as a distance, as something to view from the bridge, is something he sort of got from Paul Grosz, to be honest, but he also had it in his own. And this is a structure that is more typical. This is not. This is that sort of radical expressive potential of photography, the vibration, the harmonics of the wires, what are they called? Thank you, cables. He's not afraid to do this. Very un-American. And we admire him for it, at least for the moment. Okay, so The Bridge is written for many, many years. It is nearly the most impossible book to describe. I'm going to try. It's sort of a synthesis, a mystical synthesis of America. It's about Pocahontas. It's about traveling Conestoga wagons. It's about bridging America. It's optimistic, actually. It's about the marshaling of the spirit, the ancient spirit of America. I think he believes that the bridge represents all that's good about the country. But let's remember, it was published in 1930. It was completed in 1929. He cannot get an American publisher. It's published by the Black Sun Press in Paris, the Crosbys. The crazy thing about it is something happens in 1929 that changes everything. The crash. So all of these artists are going to rethink what America stands for. What is it built on? What is its bedrock? What should we be proud of? And these kinds of stories are stories told, in a certain sense, in The Bridge. It's a fascinating amalgam of things. I will just read you another letter. He wrote to his friend, "I'm too much interested in this bridge thing to write letters, ads." He was an ad copywriter. Or anything. It's just beginning to take the least outline, and the more outline the conception of the thing takes, the more its final difficulties appall me. All this preliminary thought has to result, of course, in some channel forms or mold into which I throw myself at white heat. Very roughly, it concerns a mystical synthesis of America. And I will just tell you that this sort of story, this sort of ambition is something that poets have always had. It's a very different story than Walker Evans did. So this idea that Evans and Crane are going to come together to produce this thing makes it even more interesting than just one or the other parts of it. It would take Crane 7 years of intermittent but persistent writing to complete it. It was published first in a limited edition in Paris. It was with 3 pictures. It came out in a New York edition with 1 picture. And over that period, the world changed. We are going to just take a little interlude now and look at something else. Here's the American edition paperback cover, the wrapper. My copy doesn't have that. And you can see it's that same picture that is used on the cover. that diagonal power is something that you can see the typographer built on in just doing the graphics for the cover of the book. So here's our man crane on the roof of 110 Columbia Heights. And what's in the background? Yeah. So if you're a poet, this is a pretty good place to write a poem. And I think it's kind of cool. This is in poor condition. It's in Columbia's collection. There are not very many pictures of Crane at 110 Columbia Heights. Those of you who want to know, the building no longer stands. This is a picture that I got from the New York Historical Society to show you. It's the middle building with the mansard roof. And you can imagine Crane hanging out there and looking out at the bridge. And so too Washington Roebling and his wife. Walker Evans was not done with the bridge when he completed the photographs in 1929 or so. He was an obsessive collector of the great American idiom, the picture postcard. We have 10,000 of his cards. Those of you who don't know, and I am the custodian for Walker Evans' complete archive, which is 30,000 negatives, 10,000 color transparencies, his correspondence to and from people like Crane and everyone else he engaged with, including Paul Groats, and his 10,000 postcards. I did a show of his postcard collection and featured, I think, 20 pictures of the Brooklyn Bridge, including this one. There's a nice little sentiment on the poem, the writing here. It's from Lil. And she writes, "Someone must have taken a snapshot of your Aunt Bertha. The one in yellow, I think, don't you?" I love postcards. It is a poem to me. Or this one. This is from, this is the Brooklyn sort of terminal part. So Evans liked these things. They're not unlike his pictures, but they're really not like his pictures. He liked the diagnostic way this picture is put together. You see the street, you see the streetcars, you see the train, you see the bridge, you see the pedestrians. It's everything you want in a picture. A little too much, but it is everything you want in a picture. Why did Walker Evans like postcards? Why does anyone like postcards? Because they're the tweets of the day. They're the, texts. When Walker Evans was working, you could send a postcard to somebody in the morning and say, "Pick me up at the 3:05 train." And they would pick you up at the 3:05 train. That was one of the reasons why I loved Helen Levitt. Does anyone know Helen Levitt's photographs? The great New York photographer. She was a really good friend. I was working here, been here for a long time. And one day I got a postcard from her. It was one of those blank postcards you buy in the post office that have a sort of embossed stamp in the upper right of like George Washington. It's the cheapest postcard you could send. Anyway, so it said Jeff Rosenheim. I don't even think it's the Met, or it's like 82nd and 5th Avenue, New York 10028. And on the back side, it said, "Jeff, please call me." Who does that? Anyway, she was a very funny woman. And a good friend. And she grew up in Brooklyn, in Bensonhurst. And she was Walker Evans' lover, a half a day. And she printed for his great show at the Museum of Modern Art in 1938, American Photographs. Okay, so Evans wasn't done with the Brooklyn Bridge in 29 or so, when he finished the pictures that ended up being part of the bridge. In 1960, with a 2¼ camera and color film, he went back and he made pictures down, if you will, in the Dumbo area, either in Brooklyn or in Manhattan, of how tall that structure was, which he didn't really get at in his pictures earlier, in my opinion. And these are those buildings that you can see so beautifully drawn in the presentations drawings outside. They're in the archways. And I want you to look at those. They're literally on the other side of this wall. Where that clock is, it's on the other side of this wall. Look at those drawings. Look how fantastic it is. It's these buildings. And this is still there for you to pass by. He didn't just photograph the bridge, he photographed those buildings. And I want to do a show or a book of his pictures made in 1960, just of these places in the area underneath the bridge. It's a great idea. I hope no one from my publications department is here. I've been trying to get this book done for like 20 years. It's not just nostalgia because it's a nice car. It's just that great 1830s, 40s architecture. Look at this. This is sort of South Street Seaport area. Okay. My friend Peter Kayafas is in the room. Raise your hand, Peter. Peter is the head of the Akins Press Foundation, and the Akins Press is well known for many things, but one of the things it should be honored for is that a while back in the 90s, before we acquired the Walker Evans Archive, which I didn't know until I called Peter yesterday, a decision was made to publish a portfolio, and it's of 9 hand-pulled gravures from Evans' pictures, and I just want to show you because it's a great thing. For those of you who are obsessed by the Brooklyn Bridge, I think everybody is, you want to have this. It reproduces not the whole poem, but the frontispiece. This is a little frontispiece to the book. And these are the gravures, and I think they're just beautifully done. And Peter was trying to tell me something I couldn't fully understand about how specially these were made. They were made from the original negatives. And I'm just showing you a couple because this is the kind of a thing, we have an archive, this is the kind of the thing I wish we had done and we continue to do. But I just admire it. And if you're interested, Peter, I'm sure will be happy to talk to you. So some closing thoughts. During the research for this, I'm watching my time. During the research for this, I had heard and read that the bridge was, very significant on 9/11 for those who were leaving. It's gonna make me cry. Manhattan, and I just thought I would do a little bit of how important the bridge is in ways we would never otherwise think about. So this is a bridge picture, but it also has the towers. It's from 1987. I just took it from the AP. There they were. Kind of an amazing, I had not seen this picture before. It's not the greatest picture I ever saw, but it's a very interesting picture because of what happened next. This is a picture from September 11th. I was working at my desk. All my family was in town. It was a dramatic day. This picture is so calm. I can hardly believe it. But there they are on the bridge. And then there's the Tribute and Light picture. And I'm not sure I'm in favor of the Tribute and Light in the same way that others are, but this picture works for me because of the central power of the Brooklyn Bridge as the storytelling device in a certain sense. Nice picture. I wanted to find a blizzard picture for us, but I had to go back to 2010. I couldn't find the right picture, and I love this. It's just a jogger picture. It's just fun. The bridge is great when you can't see too much across it. Anyway, we all lived through the great blizzard of 2026. Okay. Does everyone know the elephant story? No? Okay, so every time you think about the bridge in everybody's film, there's this story that you all know that soon after the bridge opened in 1883, it was Memorial Day. And so many people took the day off and went up to the bridge because it was brand new. And somebody slipped and fell, and people thought that the bridge was falling. And there was a stampede to get down the staircases, and 20 people died, and many more were injured. And there was this rumor that the bridge was not safe. And what was the city going to do about it? It bankrupted the city kind of for 2 times. It was this drama about how to convince everyone that the bridge was safe. And so the story goes that they contacted, or P.T. Barnum contacted the city and said, well, we'll bring our elephants and we're going to cross the bridge and will prove that the bridge is or isn't safe. And that was the story I'd been told when I worked at the Museum of the City of New York, everything. So that was the story I told. So in preparation for this talk, I said, well, there's got to be a photograph of this. Photography was born in 1839. If there's going to be a single picture, Barnum was the great promoter. There's going to be a lot of photographs of this bridge. And so I started looking for them. And then I realized, or I seemed to realize, that there weren't any pictures. So then it was like, well, what kind of a fact is this, that there was an effort? Because I kept on reading more that, in fact, the bridge did have an event where Barnum's elephants crossed the bridge. But it was a year later, and it had nothing to do with the city's idea that the bridge was not safe. But Barnum was to promote his show. So I'm going to read you something about this, but first I'm going to tell you that this is a quote from the New York Times, supposedly the paper of record. I'm going to quote, May 18, 1884. The elephants crossed the bridge. England's pet, Old Jumbo, his royal sacredness, the white elephant, and the mighty name of Barnum added a new luster to the bridge last night. To people who looked up from the river at the big arch of electric lights, it seemed as if Noah's Ark were emptying itself over Long Island. At 9:30 o'clock, 21 elephants, 7 camels, 10 dromedaries issued from the ferry at the foot of Cortlandt Street. Hooray, shouted a small boy. There's Jumbo. His signal spread like a financial crisis. This is the Times. His signal spread like a financial crisis, and soon all his tribe were leading, lining, and following the procession up Broadway to the bridge. At the order of the superintendent of tolls, no fare was collected. The bridge rules fixed the fares for man, meat, cattle, and horses. The question of how much an elephant or a dromedary should pay stumped the superintendent. Until he has solved the problem, Barnum will enjoy the use of his money. The white elephant, mindful of his sacred character, followed with dignity. The other elephants shuffled along, raising their trunks and snorting as every train went by. Old Jumbo brought up the rear. As he reached Brooklyn, he waved his ears in acknowledgement of a prolonged chorus of delighted "ons" from a whole housetop full of pretty girls. In the city of churches, the procession filed through a tremendous crowd to the showgrounds at Tompkins and Fulton Avenues. The wagons and the rest of the animals, under the charge of R.D. Hamilton, were transferred by the Annex and Fulton Ferry. A big parade will be given on Monday morning, and the first performance will be in the afternoon. So I kept on looking for pictures. There have got to be pictures of the elephants on the bridge. So I asked AI. And here's what I asked AI. I said, are there any photographs in 1884 of elephants crossing the bridge? And AI responded I'm quoting, and it sent me this. This is the real deal. I mean, it's not the real deal, but it's the real deal today. It came with this disclaimer, and I can't show you the asterisk, but there's an asterisk, not my asterisk. I'm quoting ChatGPT. In real history, a herd of elephants from P.T. Barnum's circus was walked across the Brooklyn Bridge on May 17, 1884, to demonstrate that the bridge was safe after its opening. Because so many people have typed in the same story. It's a cautionary thing. I'm going to read that again. In real history, that's what it says. In real history, asterisk, a herd of elephants from P.T. Barnum's circus was walked across the Brooklyn Bridge on May 17, 1884, to demonstrate that the bridge was safe after its opening. Jumbo, the famous circus elephant, was among them. However, because photography technology was still early in 1884 and nighttime shots were difficult. Very few known real photographs of that event survive. If any exist publicly in very few real photographs of that event survive, if any exist publicly in major archives. Historic accounts note the event, but don't clearly show widely circulated contemporary photos from that exact moment. I love that. It's a disclaimer, and yet it's a propeller of false information in the same time. That's where we live today. Okay, so there's the maker. That's what I was looking for, and that's what I got. So, my daughters live in Brooklyn. I live here. And on my younger daughter's 30th birthday, I'm going to cry. We had dinner in Brooklyn, and that night, in the taxi on the way home, we went across the Brooklyn Bridge. It's still an awesome place. Thanks. Yeah.